I quit the day before the merger because I already knew who'd lose everything. The resignation letter sat on my desk like a loaded weapon. 3 sentences that would end my 12-year career at Hartwell Technologies and shock everyone who thought they understood what was happening with the Meridian acquisition. Around me, the office buzzed with the nervous excitement of employees who believed they were about to become part of something bigger, something better, something that would secure their futures for years to come. They had no idea they were about to be sacrificed. Alina called Sarah Chen from the cubicle next to mine, her voice bright with anticipation. "Can you believe it's finally happening tomorrow? 12 years of building this company, and now we're going to be part of Meridian Industries. My stock options alone are going to be worth more than I made in my first 5 years here." I looked at Sarah, brilliant, hard-working Sarah, who'd been my closest friend and colleague since we'd both started as junior analysts, and felt the familiar weight of knowledge I couldn't share. Sarah had no idea that her stock options would be worthless by Friday, that her position would be eliminated by the end of the month, that the integration Meridian had promised was actually a systematic dismantling designed to strip Hartwell of its most valuable assets while discarding its people. "It's certainly going to be a change," I said carefully, my fingers hovering over the resignation letter I'd spent 3 sleepless nights writing. "A change, Alina, it's going to be incredible. Did you see the integration timeline they shared yesterday? New offices, expanded research budgets, opportunities for advancement in a Fortune 500 company. This is everything we've worked for." I had seen the integration timeline. I'd also seen the real timeline, the one that existed in the confidential documents I'd been translating for the past 6 weeks as part of the due diligence process. My role as senior financial analyst had given me access to both sides of the merger documentation, and what I'd discovered had kept me awake every night since. The merger announcement had come 4 months ago, presented as a partnership between equals that would combine Hartwell's innovative technology with Meridian's market reach and resources. CEO David Morrison had stood before the entire company, his voice filled with excitement as he described the opportunities that lay ahead. "This isn't an acquisition," he'd said, his words carefully chosen to reassure employees who'd heard horror stories about corporate mergers. "This is a strategic alliance that will allow both companies to achieve more together than either could accomplish alone." But I'd seen the real documents. I'd translated the financial projections that showed Meridian's plan to eliminate 70% of Hartwell's workforce within 6 months. I'd reviewed the asset allocation spreadsheets that detailed which technologies would be absorbed into Meridian's existing products and which would be discontinued entirely. I'd read the facility closure timeline that would shutter our headquarters and consolidate operations at Meridian's campus 3 states away. Most damning of all, I'd seen the retention list, the names of the 43 Hartwell employees who would be offered positions at Meridian. Out of a workforce of 312 people, 43 would survive the integration. My name was on that list. Sarah's was not. "Alina, you're being awfully quiet about all this," Sarah said, walking over to lean against my desk. "Are you nervous about the transition? Because honestly, I think this is going to be the best thing that's ever happened to us." I looked at Sarah's excited face and felt something break inside my chest. She'd been working 60-hour weeks for the past month, trying to ensure that her projects were in perfect shape for the transition. She'd been staying late to document her processes, to train backup personnel, to make herself indispensable to the new organization. She had no idea that her dedication was being used against her, that every process she documented was being cataloged for transfer to Meridian employees, that every hour she spent preparing for integration was actually preparation for her own elimination. "Sarah," I said quietly, "what would you do if you found out that the merger wasn't what it seemed? If you discovered that the promises being made weren't going to be kept?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, hypothetically, what if this integration was actually designed to benefit one company at the expense of the other?" Sarah laughed, but there was a note of uncertainty in her voice. "Alina, you're starting to sound paranoid." David Morrison has been completely transparent about this process. The integration committee has been sharing updates every week. Everything is documented and above board. But what if the documentation you're seeing isn't the complete picture? Then I'd want to know the truth. But Alina, where is this coming from? Do you know something the rest of us don't? I stared at my resignation letter, weighing the consequences of honesty against the weight of keeping silent. If I told Sarah what I knew, she might be able to protect herself, maybe even warn others. But I'd also be violating the confidentiality agreement I'd signed as part of my role in the due diligence process. I'd be ending my career in disgrace and probably facing legal action. If I stayed silent, I'd be complicit in the destruction of 300 careers, including that of my closest friend. Sarah, I need to ask you something, and I need you to trust me. Have you been updating your resume? Reaching out to contacts at other companies? Making sure you have options outside of Hartwell? Why would I do that, Alina? We're about to become employees of one of the most successful companies in our industry. Why would I be looking for other options? Because sometimes the most successful companies achieve their success by eliminating competition rather than embracing it. Sarah's expression grew concerned. Alina, you're scaring me. What's going on? Before I could answer, David Morrison's voice came over the intercom system, filled with the same enthusiasm that had characterized all his communications about the merger. Attention Hartwell team. This is David with an exciting update. I've just gotten off a call with Meridian's executive team, and I'm pleased to announce that the integration process is proceeding even more smoothly than anticipated. Tomorrow's signing ceremony will mark the beginning of an exciting new chapter for all of us. Around the office, employees began applauding. Some stood up to cheer. The excitement was palpable, infectious, heartbreaking. You see, Sarah said, her smile returning. David wouldn't be this excited if there were problems. Alina, I think you're overthinking this. I picked up my resignation letter and read it one more time. Dear Mr. Morrison, please accept this letter as my formal resignation from my position as Senior Financial Analyst at Hartwell Technologies, effective immediately. While I have greatly valued my 12 years with the company, I have decided to pursue other opportunities. Thank you for the experiences and growth opportunities you have provided. Sincerely, Alina Rodriguez. 3 sentences. No explanation, no detailed reasoning, no hint of what I knew or why I was leaving. Just a clean break that would protect me legally while leaving my colleagues to face their fate without warning. Alina, Sarah said, noticing the letter in my hands. What is that? I looked at my friend, at the woman who'd celebrated every promotion with me, who'd supported me through my divorce, who'd been the sister I'd never had. I thought about the retention list with my name on it and hers conspicuously absent. I thought about the promises that were about to be broken and the lives that were about to be shattered. Sarah, I said, making a decision that would change everything. We need to talk, but not here. Can you meet me for coffee after work? There's something you need to know about tomorrow, Alina. You're really starting to worry me. Good, I said, folding the resignation letter and putting it in my purse. You should be worried. We all should be. As 5 o'clock approached and employees began filing out of the office, chattering excitedly about tomorrow's merger ceremony, I sat at my desk thinking about the choice I was about to make. I could submit my resignation and walk away clean, protecting myself while abandoning everyone else. Or I could risk everything to warn people who might not believe me, who might think I was paranoid or jealous or trying to sabotage their moment of triumph. Tomorrow, Hartwell Technologies would cease to exist as an independent company. By Friday, most of its employees would be unemployed. The question was whether I would be complicit in that destruction or whether I would find the courage to fight it, even if fighting meant losing everything I'd worked to build. The coffee shop on 5th Street was nearly empty at 6:30, just a few students with laptops and the occasional business person grabbing a late caffeine fix. I'd chosen it specifically because it was far enough from the office that we wouldn't run into colleagues, close enough that Sarah wouldn't think the location was suspicious. Sarah arrived 15 minutes late, apologizing for the delay while juggling her purse, phone, and a stack of merger preparation documents she'd been reviewing. "Sorry, Alina, I got caught up finishing the client transition reports. I want everything to be perfect for tomorrow." She settled into the chair across from me, her face still glowing with excitement. "Okay, what's this mysterious thing you need to tell me?" I'd spent the past hour rehearsing this conversation, trying to find words that would convey the magnitude of what was about to happen without sounding like a conspiracy theorist. But looking at Sarah's trusting face, I realized that no amount of preparation could make this easier. "Sarah, what I'm about to tell you is going to be difficult to hear. I need you to listen to everything before you react, and I need you to understand that I'm telling you this because I care about you, not because I want to ruin tomorrow's celebration." Sarah's smile faltered slightly. "Alina, you're really starting to scare me. What's going on?" I pulled out my laptop and opened the folder where I'd saved copies of the documents I'd been translating. Technically, I was violating my confidentiality agreement by sharing them, but I'd reached the point where legal consequences seemed less important than moral ones. "Sarah, for the past 6 weeks, I've been working on the financial due diligence for the merger. I've had access to documents from both Hartwell and Meridian, including some that haven't been shared with the general employee population. Okay, what I've discovered is that this merger isn't what David Morrison has been telling us. It's not a partnership between equals. It's an acquisition designed to strip Hartwell of its most valuable assets while eliminating most of its workforce." Sarah stared at me for a moment, then laughed nervously. "Alina, that's ridiculous. David has been completely transparent about this process. The integration committee has been sharing updates. The integration committee has been sharing the information that Meridian wanted them to share. Sarah, look at this." I turned my laptop screen toward her, showing the workforce reduction timeline I'd discovered buried in the financial projections. "This is Meridian's plan for post-merger staffing. They're keeping 43 people out of our entire workforce of 312. Sarah's face went pale as she read the document. "This, ... This can't be real. Alina, where did you get this?" "From the confidential due diligence files." "Sarah, I've seen the facility closure timeline, the asset allocation plans, the technology transfer schedules. Meridian isn't acquiring Hartwell to expand it there, acquiring it to eliminate it as competition while absorbing its most profitable technologies. But the retention bonuses, the integration training, the new office plans are all designed to keep employees focused and productive until the transition is complete. Sarah, they need us to maintain operations and complete knowledge transfer before they eliminate our positions." Sarah was quiet for a long moment, staring at the screen. When she finally looked up, her eyes were filled with a mixture of disbelief and dawning horror. "Alina, if this is true, why are you telling me? Why aren't you warning everyone?" "Because I'm not supposed to know this information. I signed a confidentiality agreement that makes sharing these documents a fireable offense and potentially a criminal act. So you're risking your career to warn me." I hesitated, knowing that what I said next would reveal the full complexity of my situation. "Sarah, there's something else you need to know. Meridian has created a retention list, the names of employees they want to keep after the merger, and my name is on that list. Yours isn't." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. She leaned back in her chair, staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before: hurt, betrayal, and something that might have been anger. "You're going to be fine," she said quietly. "You're going to survive this, and you're warning me out of..." "What guilt?" "I'm warning you because you're my friend, and because what's happening to you is happening to almost everyone we work with. But not you. No, not me." Sarah was quiet for several minutes, processing the information and its implications. When she finally spoke, her voice was different, harder, more distant. "Alina, how long have you known about this?" "I've been seeing pieces of it for weeks, but I didn't understand the full scope until 3 days ago. 3 days ago. And you're telling me now, the night before the merger is finalized?" "I've been trying to figure out what to do." Sarah, if I warn everyone, I'll be fired and probably sued. If I stay quiet, I'll be complicit in destroying the careers of people I care about. So you decided to warn just me, your one special friend who deserves to know the truth. I could hear the bitterness in her voice, and I understood it. From Sarah's perspective, I was the privileged insider who'd been selected for survival while she was marked for elimination. Sarah, I'm not just warning you, I'm asking for your help. My help with what? With warning everyone else. With finding a way to expose what's really happening before it's too late. Alina, the merger is tomorrow. Even if we could prove that Meridian is planning mass layoffs, what could we do about it? The contracts are signed, the board has approved everything, the integration is already in motion. I don't know, but I know that doing nothing feels like betrayal. Sarah closed my laptop and pushed it back toward me. Alina, can I ask you something? Of course. If your name wasn't on that retention list, would you still be sitting here having this conversation with me? The question cut deeper than I'd expected. I wanted to say yes, that I would have found the courage to speak up regardless of my own situation. But the honest answer was more complicated. I don't know, I admitted. I'd like to think I would, but I don't know. At least you're honest about it. Sarah stood up, gathering her purse and the merger documents she'd brought with her. Sarah, where are you going? Home, to update my resume and start making phone calls. Alina, thank you for warning me, even if it was motivated by guilt rather than friendship. That's not fair, isn't it? Alina, you've known for days that my career was about to be destroyed, and you only told me when it became emotionally unbearable for you to keep the secret. That's not friendship, that's conscience management. I watched Sarah walk away, knowing that our relationship had been fundamentally changed by this conversation. But more than that, I realized that warning one person wasn't enough to ease the weight of what I knew. I spent the next 2 hours sitting in that coffee shop, staring at my laptop screen and thinking about the choice I still had to make. I could submit my resignation letter and walk away, protecting myself while leaving everyone else to face their fate. Or I could find a way to expose the truth, even if it meant destroying my own career in the process. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Alina, this is Sarah. I've been thinking about our conversation. If you're serious about wanting to warn everyone, meet me at the office at midnight. I have an idea, but it's going to require both of us to risk everything. I stared at the message, understanding that Sarah was offering me a chance at redemption, not just for keeping the secret, but for being complicit in a system that protected some people at the expense of others. I typed back, I'll be there. As I walked to my car, I thought about the resignation letter still sitting in my purse. The clean exit that would preserve my career while abandoning my colleagues. Tomorrow, Hartwell Technologies would be absorbed into Meridian Industries, and 300 people would begin the process of losing their jobs. But tonight, Sarah and I were going to give them a fighting chance. The question was whether we could expose the truth before the merger was finalized, or whether we were already too late to change anything except our own consciences. The Hartwell building at midnight felt like a mausoleum, its empty corridors echoing with the footsteps of two women who were about to commit what could be considered corporate espionage in service of corporate justice. Sarah was waiting for me in the lobby, her laptop bag slung over her shoulder, and her expression determined in a way I'd rarely seen during our 12 years of friendship. Alina, she said as I approached, before we do this, I need to know that you're committed. Once we start down this path, there's no going back. I'm committed, Sarah. What's your plan? We're going to do what we should have done weeks ago. We're going to tell everyone the truth. But we're going to do it in a way that forces Meridian to respond publicly rather than just firing us quietly. She led me to the elevator, and we rode up to the 15th floor in silence. The executive conference room was dark, except for the emergency lighting, giving the space an ominous quality that seemed appropriate for what we were about to attempt. Sarah, how are we going to reach everyone? It's midnight, and the merger ceremony is in 8 hours. We're not going to reach everyone tonight, but we're going to create a situation where the truth comes out during the ceremony itself. In front of the board, the media, and all the employees who've been invited to celebrate. Sarah opened her laptop and began pulling up files I'd never seen before. Alina, while you've been translating financial documents, I've been doing some investigating of my own. I've been tracking communication patterns, meeting schedules, and decision-making timelines. What I've found suggests that some people at Hartwell have known about Meridian's real plans for months. What do you mean? I mean, David Morrison and the senior executive team have been complicit in this deception from the beginning. They've been actively helping Meridian plan the workforce reduction while publicly promising job security. She showed me a series of email exchanges between Morrison and Meridian executives discussing transition logistics and redundancy elimination in language that made their intentions unmistakably clear. Sarah, where did you get these emails? From Morrison's assistant, Jennifer Walsh. She's been increasingly uncomfortable with what she's been asked to schedule and document. When I approached her this afternoon and explained what you'd discovered, she decided that her loyalty was to the employees rather than to the executives, who've been lying to them. I stared at the emails, feeling a mixture of vindication and rage. Morrison hadn't just been naive or misled, he'd been an active participant in planning the destruction of his own company's workforce. Sarah, this changes everything. If we can prove that Hartwell's leadership has been deliberately deceiving employees, we might be able to challenge the merger on grounds of fraud. That's exactly what I'm thinking. But Alina, we need more than just emails. We need documentation that shows the systematic nature of the deception, and we need to present it in a way that can't be dismissed or covered up. What are you proposing? Sarah pulled out a small recording device and set it on the conference table. I'm proposing that we create a comprehensive record of everything we know, everything we've discovered, and everything we can prove about this merger. Then we're going to make sure that record gets presented during tomorrow's ceremony in front of everyone who needs to hear it. Sarah, that's career suicide. Even if we're right about everything, Meridian will destroy us for interfering with the merger. Alina, our careers are already over. The only question is whether we go down fighting or whether we go down quietly. We spent the next 4 hours creating what Sarah called our truth bomb, a comprehensive presentation that laid out the evidence of Meridian's real intentions, Morrison's complicity, and the systematic deception that had been perpetrated against Hartwell's employees. The presentation included the workforce reduction timeline, the facility closure plans, the technology transfer schedules, and most damning of all, the email exchanges that showed Morrison and his team actively planning for mass layoffs while publicly promising job security. Sarah, how are we going to get this presented during the ceremony? Jennifer Walsh is going to help us. As Morrison's assistant, she's responsible for managing the presentation technology during the ceremony. She's going to ensure that our presentation gets loaded into the system and displayed during what's supposed to be Morrison's closing remarks. And if we're caught before then we'll be fired, possibly arrested, and definitely sued. But Alina, if we don't try, 300 people are going to lose their jobs without ever knowing that they were betrayed by the people they trusted. As dawn approached, we finalized our presentation and prepared for what would either be the most important thing we'd ever done or the most catastrophic mistake of our careers. Alina, Sarah said, as we prepared to leave the building, I need to ask you something. Are you doing this because you feel guilty about being on the retention list or because you genuinely believe it's the right thing to do? I thought about her question, about the motivations that had brought me to this point. Both, I said finally. I feel guilty about being selected for survival while you and others are marked for elimination. But more than that, I believe that what's happening here is fundamentally wrong, and that staying silent makes me complicit in that wrongness. Good. Because what we're about to do is going to require both moral conviction and personal courage. At 7:30 that morning, I submitted my resignation letter to HR, effective immediately. But instead of walking away, I stayed for the merger ceremony. Knowing that I was about to participate in either the exposure of corporate fraud or the destruction of my own professional reputation, the ceremony was held in the main auditorium with all 312 Hartwell employees in attendance. along with Meridian executives, board members, and local media representatives who'd been invited to cover the historic partnership. David Morrison took the stage with his usual confidence, speaking eloquently about the opportunities that lay ahead and the bright future that awaited everyone in the combined organization. "Today marks not an ending, but a beginning," he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the auditorium. "Today, we become part of something larger, something stronger, something that will secure our collective future for generations to come." The applause was enthusiastic, heartfelt, trusting. I looked around at my colleagues' faces and saw the same excitement and optimism that had characterized the office for months. They had no idea what was coming. "And now," Morrison continued, "I'd like to share some details about our integration timeline and the exciting opportunities that await us in the months ahead." He clicked to advance to his next slide. But instead of the integration timeline he'd prepared, Sarah's presentation appeared on the screen behind him. The title slide read, "The Truth About the Meridian Merger, a Systematic Plan for Workforce Elimination." Morrison's face went white as he realized what was happening. In the audience, I could see confusion spreading as employees tried to process what they were seeing. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sarah's voice came over the auditorium's sound system as she activated the microphone from the tech booth. "What you're about to see is the real plan for this merger, based on confidential documents that have been hidden from you for months." The next slide showed the workforce reduction timeline with its stark projection of eliminating 269 positions within 6 months. A gasp went up from the audience. Morrison was frantically trying to regain control of the presentation, but Jennifer Walsh had locked him out of the system. "This merger is not a partnership," Sarah continued, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was revealing. "It is an acquisition designed to eliminate Hartwell as competition while absorbing its most valuable technologies. The promises you've been given about job security and career advancement are lies." The auditorium erupted in angry voices, confused questions, and demands for explanation. Meridian executives were huddled in urgent conversation, probably trying to decide whether to continue with the ceremony or abort the entire process. But it was too late. The truth was out, and 300 people who'd been betrayed by their leadership were finally learning what their future really held. Morrison grabbed the microphone, his composure completely shattered. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. What you're seeing is a malicious presentation created by disgruntled employees who are trying to sabotage this historic partnership." Then explain the emails. Sarah's voice cut through his denial as the presentation advanced to show Morrison's own communications with Meridian executives about redundancy, elimination, and transition logistics. The room fell silent as employees read their CEO's own words, planning their elimination. Morrison's career was over. The merger might be salvageable, but the trust that had made the deception possible was destroyed forever. And in the tech booth, Sarah Chen was proving that sometimes the most important thing you can do is tell the truth, regardless of the personal cost. The auditorium had transformed from a celebration into something resembling a tribunal. 300 employees sat in stunned silence as Sarah's presentation continued, each slide revealing another layer of deception that had been carefully constructed over months of merger planning. David Morrison stood frozen at the podium, his face cycling through expressions of panic, anger, and calculation as he tried to regain control of a situation that had spiraled completely beyond his management. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice cracking slightly, "I want to assure you that what you're seeing is a gross misrepresentation of our integration plans. These documents have been taken out of context, then provide the context." Sarah's voice cut through the auditorium speakers as the presentation advanced to show detailed facility closure timelines. "Explain to everyone why Meridian has scheduled the shutdown of our headquarters for December 15th. Explain why they've budgeted for severance packages for 269 employees." In the front row, I could see the Meridian executives in heated discussion with their legal team. Robert Meridian himself, the CEO who'd personally assured Hartwell employees that their jobs were secure, was staring at the screen with the expression of someone watching his company's reputation collapse in real time. Mr. Morrison called out Tom Bradley from the engineering department, his voice carrying across the silent auditorium. "Are these documents authentic? Did you know about plans to eliminate most of our positions?" Morrison looked around the room at 300 faces that had trusted him, that had worked overtime to prepare for an integration they'd believed would benefit everyone. "Tom, the merger process is complex. And there are always multiple scenarios that get discussed during due diligence. That's not an answer," interrupted Maria Santos from accounting. "Did you know that Meridian was planning to fire most of us? Yes or no?" The silence that followed was deafening. Morrison's inability to provide a simple denial was an admission that confirmed everyone's worst fears. "David," Robert Meridian finally stood up, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to managing corporate crises. "I think we need to suspend this ceremony and address these allegations in a more appropriate forum. No." Sarah's voice came over the speakers again, and I could see her silhouette in the tech booth, standing at the microphone with the determination of someone who decided to risk everything for the truth. "Mr. Meridian, your employees and our employees deserve to hear your response to these documents right now, in front of everyone who's been affected by your plans." Robert Meridian looked around the auditorium, probably calculating whether transparency or damage control would better serve his company's interests. "Very well," he said, walking to the podium and gently moving Morrison aside. "I'll address these concerns directly." He looked out at the assembled employees with the practiced composure of an executive who'd delivered bad news before. "The documents you've seen tonight are authentic," he began, and a collective gasp went up from the audience. "They represent one of several integration scenarios that were developed during our due diligence process." "One of several scenarios," called out Jennifer Walsh from her position near the tech booth. "Mr. Meridian, these aren't hypothetical scenarios. These are detailed implementation plans with specific timelines and budget allocations." "Jennifer is correct," Meridian replied, and I realized he'd made a strategic decision to embrace transparency rather than continue the deception. "These documents represent our preferred integration strategy. Based on eliminating redundancies and maximizing operational efficiency, the honesty was brutal, but somehow less insulting than the continued lies would have been." "Mr. Meridian," I found myself standing up, my voice carrying across the auditorium. "Why wasn't this information shared with employees during the merger announcement? Why were we told this was a partnership when it was actually an acquisition designed to eliminate most of our jobs?" Meridian looked at me with the calculating gaze of someone trying to determine whether I was a threat or an opportunity. "Ms. Rodriguez." Elena Rodriguez, Senior Financial Analyst, MA. Rodriguez. "The decision to limit information sharing was made to ensure operational stability during the transition period. Experience has shown that premature disclosure of workforce reduction plans can lead to talent flight and operational disruption. So you lied to us to keep us productive while you planned our elimination. We managed information disclosure to protect the interests of both companies and their stakeholders." The corporate speak was infuriating, but at least it was honest corporate speak. "Mr. Meridian," Tom Bradley stood up again. "What happens now? Do we still have jobs tomorrow, or are we all fired effective immediately?" "The merger will proceed as planned. However, given tonight's revelations, we'll be accelerating our communication timeline regarding individual employment decisions. When will we know who's being retained and who's being terminated? All employees will receive individual notifications by Friday." 3 days, Maria Santos said bitterly. "You're giving us 3 days to find new jobs after lying to us for 4 months. Robert Meridian's expression remained professionally neutral, but I could see the calculation behind his eyes. He was weighing the cost of continued deception against the benefits of cutting losses and moving forward with brutal honesty. "Ms. Santos, I understand your frustration. However, I want to be clear that this merger will create significant value for shareholders and will position the combined company for long-term success in a competitive market. What about the employees who won't be part of that long-term success? Sarah's voice came over the speakers one final time. What about the people who've dedicated years of their lives to building Hartwell Technologies, only to discover that their loyalty was being used against them? Meridian was quiet for a moment, probably recognizing that any answer he gave would be inadequate. Ms. Chen, business decisions are never easy, but they're necessary for organizational survival and growth. The employees who won't be retained will receive generous severance packages and transition support. How generous? Called out David Kim from the IT department. 6 weeks of salary plus accumulated vacation time. The number hit the room like a slap. 6 weeks of severance for employees who'd been with the company for years, some for over a decade. Mr. Meridian, I said, standing again, I have one final question. If your integration plan is so beneficial, why did you feel the need to deceive employees about its true nature? Why not present the workforce reduction as a necessary business decision rather than hiding it behind promises of partnership and growth? Meridian looked at me with something that might have been respect. Ms. Rodriguez, you ask an excellent question. The answer is that honesty about workforce reduction plans typically results in the departure of key personnel before the integration can be completed. We needed operational continuity during the transition period. So you used our dedication against us. You counted on our loyalty to keep us productive while you planned our elimination. We managed the transition in a way that protected the interests of the combined organization. I looked around the auditorium at my colleagues' faces: anger, betrayal, resignation, and in some cases, a grudging respect for Meridian's willingness to finally tell the truth, however brutal that truth might be. Mr. Meridian, I submitted my resignation this morning, effective immediately. But I want you to know that what you've done here, the systematic deception, the manipulation of employee loyalty, the callous disregard for the people who built this company, it's not just bad business, it's morally bankrupt. Ms. Rodriguez, I respect your position, but business decisions must be based on economic realities rather than emotional considerations. And that, I said, gathering my purse and walking toward the exit, is exactly why I quit before you could fire me. As I reached the auditorium doors, I turned back to look at the scene one final time. Robert Meridian stood at the podium, facing 300 employees whose trust had been systematically betrayed. David Morrison sat in the front row, his career destroyed by his complicity in the deception. Sarah Chen was still in the tech booth, having sacrificed her own future to expose the truth. Ladies and gentlemen, Meridian said as I pushed open the doors. I know this evening hasn't proceeded as any of us expected. But I want you to know that the decisions we've made, however difficult, are designed to create a stronger, more competitive organization. The last thing I heard before the doors closed behind me was Tom Bradley's voice, cutting through the corporate rhetoric with simple, devastating clarity. Mr. Meridian, the organization you're creating is stronger because you're destroying the people who made it valuable in the first place. Outside the building, I sat in my car for several minutes, processing what had just happened. Sarah's presentation had exposed the truth, but it hadn't changed the fundamental reality. Hartwell Technologies was about to be dismantled, and most of its employees were about to lose their jobs. But at least now they knew. At least they could make informed decisions about their futures, instead of being led blindly toward their own elimination. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Alina, thank you for having the courage to tell me the truth. Whatever happens next, we did the right thing. I typed back, we did. And Sarah, I'm proud to have been your friend through this. Tomorrow, the merger would be completed and the workforce reduction would begin. But tonight, 300 people had learned that sometimes the most important thing you can do is tell the truth, regardless of the personal cost. 6 months after the merger ceremony that had exposed the truth about Meridian's plans, I sat in my new office at Chen & Rodriguez Consulting, the firm Sarah and I had founded with our combined severance packages and a shared commitment to helping employees navigate corporate transitions with honesty rather than deception. The irony wasn't lost on me that our first major client was a group of former Hartwell employees who'd been terminated exactly as the leaked documents had predicted. They'd hired us to help them understand their legal options and to assist with their job searches. But more than that, they'd hired us because we were the people who'd told them the truth when their own leadership had failed them. Alina Sarah called from her office across the hall. The Morrison Group is here for their consultation. I looked up from the financial projections I'd been reviewing, surprised by the name Morrison, as in David Morrison. The very same, apparently. He wants to discuss reputation management and career transition services. The former CEO of Hartwell Technologies entered my office looking significantly older than he had 6 months ago. His expensive suit couldn't hide the weight he'd lost, and his usual confidence had been replaced by something that looked like genuine humility. "Alina," he said, settling into the chair across from my desk. "Thank you for agreeing to see me. I know this might be uncomfortable, given our history. David, I'll be honest, I'm curious about why you're here. Last time we spoke, you were calling me a disgruntled employee who was trying to sabotage a historic partnership. Last time we spoke, I was trying to protect a lie that was destroying people's lives. Alina, I owe you an apology. Several apologies. Actually, I leaned back in my chair, studying the man who'd stood before 300 employees and promised them a future he'd known was false. What kind of apologies? For lying to you and everyone else about the merger? For participating in a deception that used people's loyalty against them? For calling you disgruntled when you were actually the only person with the courage to tell the truth? David, what do you want from me? I want to hire your firm to help me understand how to rebuild a career after destroying my reputation through moral cowardice." The request was so unexpected that I wasn't sure how to respond. "David, are you asking us to help you find another CEO position?" "No, I'm asking you to help me find a way to make amends for what I did." "Alina, I've spent 6 months thinking about that night in the auditorium, about the faces of people who trusted me while I was planning their elimination. I can't undo what I did, but I want to find a way to do better." I pulled out a legal pad and began taking notes. Treating David like any other client, despite the complicated history between us. What does doing better look like to you? I want to help other executives avoid the mistakes I made. I want to advocate for transparency in corporate communications. I want to use my experience as a cautionary tale about the cost of prioritizing short-term business interests over employee welfare. David, that's a significant career pivot. Are you prepared for the financial and professional consequences of positioning yourself as a critic of corporate deception? Alina, I've already faced the consequences of participating in corporate deception. My reputation is destroyed, my career is over, and I have to live with the knowledge that I betrayed 300 people who trusted me. At this point, honesty seems like the least risky option. Over the next hour, David outlined his vision for what he called ethical transition consulting, helping companies manage workforce reductions and organizational changes with transparency rather than deception. The irony, he said, is that Meridian's approach actually made the integration more difficult and more expensive. The employee lawsuits, the negative publicity, the loss of institutional knowledge when key people quit in anger, all of that could have been avoided with honest communication from the beginning. So you're proposing to help companies do what you failed to do at Hartwell. I'm proposing to help companies learn from my failures. Alina, I know how corporate deception works because I've practiced it. I know how it damages organizations because I've seen the results. Maybe that experience has value if it prevents other executives from making the same mistakes. After David left, I sat in my office thinking about the conversation and its implications. 6 months ago, he'd been the enemy, the CEO who'd betrayed his employees' trust for personal gain. Today, he was a potential ally in the work Sarah and I were doing to promote transparency in corporate communications. Sarah knocked on my door, interrupting my thoughts. How did it go with Morrison? Better than I expected. He wants to hire us to help him rebuild his career around promoting corporate transparency. Do you believe he's sincere? I think he's desperate, but sometimes desperation leads to genuine change, and sometimes it leads to more sophisticated manipulation. I nodded, understanding Sarah's skepticism. We'll proceed carefully. But Sarah, if David Morrison can become an advocate for the kind of honesty we're promoting, that might have more impact than anything we could accomplish on our own. That evening, I received a call from Tom Bradley, one of the former Hartwell engineers, who'd been among the most vocal critics during the merger ceremony. Elena, I wanted to give you an update on the class action lawsuit. The judge approved the settlement. Meridian is paying an additional 12 weeks of severance to all terminated employees, plus legal fees. That's excellent news, Tom. It's more than that. The judge specifically cited the evidence that you and Sarah presented during the merger ceremony as proof of deliberate deception. Your decision to expose the truth didn't just help us understand what was happening, it gave us the legal foundation to fight back. After hanging up with Tom, I walked to the window that overlooked the city where I'd spent 12 years building a career at Hartwell Technologies. The building that had housed our offices was still there, but it was now occupied by a Meridian subsidiary that employed fewer than 50 people. Most of my former colleagues had found new positions, some with better companies that valued transparency over manipulation. A few had started their own businesses, using their severance packages and their hard-earned skepticism about corporate promises to build something more honest. Sarah appeared in my doorway, carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing the satisfied expression of someone who'd just closed a major deal. Good news, she said, handing me a cup. The Richardson Group wants to hire us to manage their upcoming restructuring. They specifically requested our radical transparency approach. How many employees are they planning to let go? 40% of their workforce, but Alina, they want to tell employees the truth from the beginning. They want to provide real transition support, honest timelines, and genuine severance packages. I smiled, thinking about how different this approach was from what we'd experienced at Hartwell. Sarah, do you ever regret what we did that night? Destroying our careers to expose the truth? Never. Alina, we didn't destroy our careers, we redirected them towards something more meaningful. We're helping people navigate corporate transitions with dignity instead of deception. We're proving that business success doesn't require employee betrayal, and we're doing it because we've learned the hard way what happens when employees trust leaders who don't deserve that trust. As I looked out at the city lights, I thought about the choice I'd made to quit the day before the merger, and the choice Sarah and I had made to expose the truth despite the personal cost. We'd lost our jobs at Hartwell Technologies, but we'd gained something more valuable: the knowledge that sometimes the most important thing you can do is tell the truth, even when that truth is inconvenient for people in power. The greatest victory isn't avoiding betrayal, it's choosing integrity, even when integrity comes at a personal cost.